Hello there, Lunar Squadron, and welcome back to the channel. We are now only 2 weeks away from the official release of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. I cannot believe how close we are to getting our hands on this game. We truly are in the end game now, and today we have some brand new story details to share with all of you for Marvel Spider-Man 2. We just got a brand new article interview from Marvel.com, and we got an update to the official PlayStation.com web page for Marvel Spider-Man 2 that has some awesome new character details, and we're going to break all of that down for you today. But first, if you're new to the channel, we would love to have you as always, and the way to do that, just go down below this video, hit that little subscribe button, the bell notification right on next to it. It will notify you every single time that Andreas and I upload. Now with that out of the way, Andreas, let's go ahead and jump right into all of these brand new story details.
Oh yeah, let's do this, guys.
All right, Andreas, so we know that one of the prevailing storylines or story beats going into Marvel's Spider-Man 2, one thing that Insomniac has really harked on for months now about this game is how incredibly personal this story is going to be. And we actually got a brand new article out of Marvel.com yesterday that really continues to back up this story beat.
Yes, we did, Nick, and we're going to walk through this article. It is from Marvel.com. It is titled Marvel Spider-Man 2 Creators on Making a Game Worthy of Two Spider-Men. And this article is by Megan DeMore. Nick, why don't we just pick out some segments that we think are notable? Guys, if you want to check out the article in its entirety, it is on Marvel.com. It was uploaded yesterday. Go check it out because we are going to leave out just a couple segments of this. But let's go ahead and dig right in. The article starts with this snippet here. It says, when Venom and a host of other vile villains bear down on Marvel's New York in Marvel's Spider-Man 2, it will take everything Peter Parker and Miles Morales have to keep the darkness at bay, and that's entirely by design. Speaking to Marvel.com, Insomniac Games senior creative director Brian Inahar revealed the goal for Marvel Spider-Man 2 was always to tell a story worthy of two Spider-Men, and that meant creating challenges that will test Peter and Miles in all new ways. One point I'd like to start off with, guys, is this quote right here. It says, I think what we wanted is we wanted to have a story with adversaries that are worthy of requiring two Spider-Men to save the day, hence bringing in this guy, Tony Todd, and seeing Venom. And then also looking at our cast of Kraven and Lizard and others, they're really challenging our heroes in ways that they've never been challenged before, whether it's physically, psychologically. Nick, this is something that I think we really emphasized during our breakdown and analysis of the recent CGI trailer, that the villains in this game, most notably Venom, really do personify the biggest challenges that we have seen these two Spider-Men confronted with to date. And that's in addition to the daily challenges that these two Spider-Men are going to be facing. They now have to face villains that are so big and so bad that they require not just one, but two Spider-Men, two superheroes to stop. And I think that is something that is going to be really interesting to see how they power scale these villains, how specifically, I think we get an idea of how Venom is going to be, just how they built him up, but I'm really wondering how they are going to be power scaling villains such as Kraven and Lizard. I know Lizard is going to be like that introductory villain just based on what we've seen with the game, but I'm really interested in how Kraven is going to play out specifically, just given how tactical and mental he's going to kind of bring that more analytical component to a villain that I really want to see in this story. And then the other factor here is not only are these Spider-Men facing the biggest challenges that they have faced to date, but they also have the most to lose. And I think that is really going to be a sticking point for this game, and we're definitely going to be building on that as we get along in this discussion.
Yeah, for me, the biggest eye-opener portion of this quote from Brian Intihar, because a lot of it is stuff that, we kind of know or have been tipped off on, but the biggest one for me is when he talks about how they're going to be challenged not just physically, but also psychologically. There's going to be mind games being played here that both Peter and Miles are going to have to deal with. And I'm assuming that means, striking at the personal relationships that these characters have. And you will see one of the things that we really hark on throughout this video is that it really feels like and appears that Marvel Spider-Man 2 is going to be incredibly personal, and more personal than what we've seen, because this franchise is already incredibly personal. If you think to the stories of the first two Spider-Man games, that being the first one and then Miles Morales, those were very personal stories. Of course, you know, you have the whole relationship between Peter and Dr. Octavius in the first one, and Martin Lee and Aunt May, and Miles himself with Martin Lee, like all of that stuff already personal. Miles Morales, the main bad guy, is Miles' best friend from school. So like these are already very personal stories, but it looks like Insomniac is really turning that dial up to 11 here in this game. Like, this is going to get dirty, this is going to get nasty, it's going to be so personal, and it's going to make for a very dark story, to the point where we're dealing with the psychological effects that it's going to have on these characters. Now, I want to jump forward because the next paragraph just talks about gameplay features that we already knew about, but I want to get into these interview portions with some of the lead voice actors in this game. And I want to start off with this paragraph about Najee Jeter, where it says, likewise, Miles Morales actor Najee Jeter weighed in on how Brooklyn's inclusion in Marvel Spider-Man 2 will impact his character. Quote, Miles is definitely growing up. So we see him go through the changes from a young high school kid, going through the puberty changes, and just through the manhood changes, and then now becoming his own. He's definitely owning a lot more of what he's become, he said. So just with Brooklyn being involved and just with everything in Marvel's New York, it kind of makes him his own, just through the ruggedness, the fast-paced moving, and just the villains. Everybody that's in Marvel's New York sums up Miles' behavior as he's growing into his equal as Peter. Andreas, I really love this insight here from Najee, because what it's telling me is that all of the stuff that Miles is going to go through in this game as Spider-Man, as Miles himself, the growing, the relationships, what he's going to face in the city, what he's going to face from these villains, it's going to help him emerge from being under the shadow of the first Spider-Man, being under the shadow of Peter, and he's really going to take into his own unique Spider-Man. And I am so excited to see where we pick up with Miles and then where we end up with him, 20 hours later into the story, just seeing that character progression and how the relationship between him and Peter unfolds throughout this game, because I really love what Najee brings to the character of Miles Morales and what Miles Morales brings to this universe that Insomniac has made. So I'm just excited to see his growth throughout this game and just who he ends up being by the time we're done.
That is something that I'm also really excited to see. I think they really did a great job of planting the seeds for this character in not just the first game, but also Miles Morales, particularly planting the whole trying to find out who your own Spider-Man is, finding that identity for your own Spider-Man, not just being in the shadow of Pete's Spider-Man. And that said, I think this is going to be a game where, like they said in the prior section of this article that we read, it's going to take two full, strong Spider-Men to take down these villains that they're posed with. It's not just going to be good enough to have Spider-Man and Diet Spider-Man here. They are both going to have to live up to that standard and give 100%. It's going to take 200% of Spider-Man to take down these villains, and so that's going to be a really great struggle to see Miles continue to grapple with. And then on the Pete side, we also got a quote out of Yuri Lowenthal, of course the voice actor behind Peter Parker, and he says, I love that we get to hang out in Queens together at Aunt May's house. Then Laura Bailey agreed with that statement, saying, that's what I was going to say, it's cool to see Aunt May's house. And then I also love this additional context that Lowenthal brings about Aunt May's house here. He says that house meant something when she was alive, and now when Pete and company are older and Aunt May isn't around anymore, it's like a nest of memories. I'm trying to figure out how to grow up and make my way in the world and expand our relationship, and there's a shadow of Aunt May still there. And I really love this, Nick, because it's really playing into that whole theme that I think is imbued throughout this conversation, and that is that these characters and the people they care about are really going to be personalized throughout this game. the Insomniac team isn't just going to kill off Aunt May and then have Pete get over it. He's going to have long-lasting scars from this loss that are really going to impact him. It's going to be all around him in Aunt May's house. Aunt May's house isn't just a cool place to go to. It's a place that he's going to go to remember who Aunt May was to him, his childhood. It's going to go a lot deeper than that, and I think it's going to go a long way in personalizing this Pete. And that, again, is going to go hand in hand with how much the stakes are going to be raised in this game.
Yeah, and the big thing I'm taking away from these quotes that we're getting from Naji and Yuri and Laura and all of them is we're trying to find our place in the universe here. That is what Peter and Miles are going to have to battle with, on top of fighting off these ruthless villains in Venom and Kraven and Lizard. They're really trying to just find their place in the world and their place with their relationships and just kind of trying to figure everything out and balance it all. And it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to do it, if not damn near impossible. Now, the last paragraph I want to talk about from this article before we move into the new stuff from the PlayStation website is this quote from the story lead, John Paquette, where he says, "Tonally, I think what it does is exactly what Naji was saying. The city in the first two games had an energy to it, but once you go into the suburbs, you start to bring it down a little bit and you start to think about stability and the future and family. Whereas Miles is out there in the city in Brooklyn and Manhattan doing his things. These two in Queens, what are they thinking about?" Andreas, is this like a soft confirmation that like we're seeing the next step in the progression of the relationship between Peter and MJ? Like, are they starting to think about settling down and like, you know, is marriage on the table here? Is that kind of what we're getting at? Family on the table, kids, like, which is crazy to think about just because like, if this story really is going to get personal and it's going to tear at those personal relationships, it just feels like it's setting up to get so dirty and ugly and nasty, and it's just gonna break your heart. I feel like we're being set up for just a total heartbreaking moment or multiple heartbreaking moments in this game that is just gonna be something you think about for the next 5 years until you get the next game.
I definitely get the sense that Insomniac is giving us all something to lose here. Like, a big and bad villain is only as threatening as the damage that they are capable of doing to you, and in this game, it feels like there is so much damage potential here. If Venom does anything to Peter Parker, he's not just killing a random heartless Peter Parker that we aren't invested in. He's killing a Peter Parker that has years of pain and trauma behind him in recovering from his loss of Aunt May, and he has a future ahead of him with a potential family with Mary Jane. And that is going to really contextualize the stakes for this game, and I keep going back to that because that's really what I'm getting out of this. But Nick, I'm really excited to see where Pete's relationship with MJ goes throughout this game, and of course Lowenthal says, "I guess you'll find out" here. Again, I think he is teasing that maybe they are going to be going to that next level just based off of the quote that you read from John Paquette. And on that note, we've also got some more information about all of the different characters that are going to help raise the stakes for this game, all of the friends for Peter and Miles that were added to the PlayStation.com page for Spider-Man 2. Maybe we can just briefly run through these because I think that's also going to play hand in hand with the general themes that I think we're pulling out of here. Insomniac is really trying to get us to care about the characters in this game.
Yeah, so it appears that the PlayStation.com listing for Marvel's Spider-Man 2 got a recent update, and we have this brand new subsection on the website where it's about characters, and it says call on old friends. Peter and Miles still have their ride or dies close at hand, and we get a look at some of the characters in this game, like Rio and MJ, and a short little description about them going into this game. Of course, we start here with Rio Morales, and it says, some know her as Miles' cool mom, but most know City Councilwoman Rio Morales for her tireless work to make New York a better and safer place. Then we see MJ, and it says she isn't just a reporter on the Bugle, she's also an integral member of the Spider team, showing that heroes don't need superhuman abilities. Then we get to see Genki, and it says Miles' best friend, confidant, and partner in heroism. Genki was the second person Miles told about the whole Spider-Man thing, Peter, of course, being the first. Then we get this little one about Norman Osborn, and it says Harry's dad. co-founder of the world's biggest tech company and disgraced former mayor of New York. He's a pathological liar, but he would do anything to help Harry. I think that is an incredibly interesting sentence to include about Norman. Then we get this one about Harry where it says, Norman Osborn's son. He has been away for the last few years dealing with the same disease that killed his mom, but he's back with a new lease on life. And the last one is of Haley Cooper, one of Miles's closest friends, and it says community activist, street artist, and one of Miles' closest friends. She's creative, funny, intelligent, and compassionate, especially if you ask Miles. Now, Andreas, nothing too terribly new or stuff we didn't really know about these characters going into this game, but for me, it's about reading between the lines here. The fact that they updated the website here to include these things about the characters and the relationships that Peter and Miles have, their ride or dies that they call them, it's about reading between the lines. It's about talking about how personal this game is going to be, how it's going to pull on these personal relationships and really just tear at these characters and hit them where they live the deepest. And it's just, man, I keep going back to, I'm just ready for heartbreak in this game. Like, I'm nervous going into the story because I'm worried about what's going to happen to these characters over the course of the 20 hours of this story. And it just feels like every single time we get new information about the story of Marvel Spider-Man 2, Insomniac makes it a point to be like, look at their relationships, look at their personal lives, look at how we're going to tear at them, and we're going to make this personal, and we're really going to dig deep into these characters, and we're going to make it hurt. Like, this is not going to be, at least in my opinion, I don't think we're coming out of this in a happy way. I think maybe there is a happy ending, but man, it's going to be a rough road to get to that point, I feel like, in this game. And there's going to be some tough moments in this game, and it's just going to be a wild ride.
That it is. And on that note, we all know that it is really part and integral of Spider-Man's experience to experience loss along the way to fully becoming Spider-Man. And so it also, I think, within the context of a broader Spider-Man story, we kind of have this almost expectation that there will be loss whenever we go into a Spider-Man story. I just kind of look at this carousel of characters here and really wonder, who is going to be coming out of this game and who isn't. And also a lot of us thinking, who is going to end up being Venom? If it's Harry, like, that's going to be another thing that's going to pull at the heartstrings. Like, we could have another situation here where the big bad at the end of this game ends up being someone that you really care about, and that really does get the stakes going so much more. Really lays out the track for a game that's really going to hit you where it hurts, right, Nick?
Yeah, it certainly is. Guys, let us know down below in the comments your thoughts on what you expect for the story of Marvel Spider-Man 2. How much do you think it's gonna hurt? How much are they gonna really dig into these relationships and make us, the players, really feel the impacts of the story beats of this game? I gotta tell you, I'm incredibly nervous, but I'm also incredibly excited because we're only 2 weeks away. We're so close to the end, so definitely, guys, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. We love talking with all of you. But that is going to do it for us for this one. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, we will see you all next time.